So things seem a little skeptical because you're doing your research and all you're getting about moving to Orlando, Florida is the good stuff, such as how great the weather is and the fun activities to do like Disney and Universal. But what if I told you that there are aspects of Orlando that the residents typically don't enjoy? And had they known about these aspects or these things, they may have moved elsewhere. In this video, I'm going to give you my top 7 reasons why you should not move to Orlando, Florida. And stick around to the end because the last one is the one that shocks the new residents the most. If this is your first time to the channel and you want to know everything there is about living in Orlando, Florida, then subscribe below and tap the bell notification so that you are the first to learn about the current market here in Orlando, Florida. My name is Lee Bennett and my team and I get calls and emails every day from people just like you looking for help on making their move to Orlando, Florida. And we absolutely love it. Whether you're moving in 9 days or 9 months, give us a call, shoot us a text, or send us an email. So all of the information is in the description below. It can help you make a smooth move to Orlando, Florida. And with that, let's get right into it. Starting off with the number 1 reason why you should not move to Orlando, Florida, and that will have to be because of the heat. Although Orlando on average gets 235 days of sunshine and could be seen as a highlight, it gets very hot during most of those days, excruciating hot, and above 100 degrees quite often. But the humidity added on with the heat that's already here makes it feel much hotter than it really is. On top of that, the humidity causes a lot of sweating. So if you dress up for work, then you may want to try to figure out a way where you can dress down, because this heat, if you have any type of clothing that covers your body up for too long and you're out in the heat a lot, you're gonna need some water, some electrolytes, and you're gonna sweat a lot. So that's one thing you need to pay attention to or be aware of before you start the day, because in the mornings, it may feel like you're good to go in your 3-piece suit or whatever it is that you wear, because it's, let's say, 70 degrees or 65 degrees. But by the afternoon, those temperatures have risen to about 90 to 92, 95 degrees on top of the humidity, which makes it feels like 100 degrees. So these are things that you have to think about when you move to Orlando, Florida. And it is a major factor because you hear these stories where people pass out and they don't even know, they weren't even aware. You have heat strokes. I'm a football coach, so I have to deal with kids, making sure they get their water, a lot of water. It's mandatory. And then even sometimes we can't even practice outside because they put in a law where, I'm not even sure if it's a law, but it's due to a lot of heat strokes and kids passing out on the football fields, where you can't practice outside if it's above, I think, 92 degrees. So you have to pack, or you can't even, 92 degrees. And if it's above 90, then you can't practice with shoulder pads and helmet. So this is a major thing here in Florida. And if you can't take the heat, then that would be a reason why you should not move to Orlando, Florida. And so the second reason why you should not move to Orlando, Florida, and that would have to be the traffic. If you hate sitting in lines for a long time, if you hate being bumper to bumper on these roads, the highways, if you hate driving around people that don't know where they're going, or they're having trouble finding where they need to exit off the highway or whatever it is, then Orlando is not the place to be. Because 1, Orlando is a tourist destination. So there's going to be a lot of people here that have phones in their face trying to drive because they're looking at their GPS, or maybe they're trying to record some part of Orlando that they think is beautiful and they want to send it back to their family or have some memories. And so if you don't like dealing with that, Orlando is not the place. But also with the tourists, I love the tourists, They bring a lot of money here to Orlando, and plus I love just meeting new people and vibing with different cultures. But the fact is, they cause a lot of accidents because they just don't know where to go or where to exit off of. And so you have people that do live here who are trying to speed fast and get around people, and then you have the people that are driving slower or trying to swerve over because they're about to miss their exit because they don't know. And so Orlando is known for those types of accidents, especially on I-4. I-4 is the third most deadliest highway in the country, and some people call it haunted. So Orlando's traffic is well known across the country because I-4 runs through Orlando. Along with that, Orlando is known for its long traffic lights. Now, if you don't like sitting in traffic for a long time at the light, then it's best to take the tolls, because if you're going through lights, let's say International, wherever it is, International Drive, wherever it is, then you are going to sit in lights for a long time, depending on the part of the day, of course. But I suggest that you find a different route that you would like to take to avoid the lights, because if you're trying to get somewhere in a hurry, going through the general areas is not going to be the place. Because even with the turning signals, I just last week I'm turning into Starbucks to get a coffee, and I felt like I was sitting at the light longer than I was at Starbucks. But that's just how it is here in Orlando. So if you don't like people that not familiar with the roads, you don't like the long traffic lights, and you don't want to drive on the third deadliest road or highway in the country, then Orlando is not the place to be. Because I'm gonna be honest, I-4 is a major highway, and you're most likely going to get on I-4 if you live anywhere near Orlando. But yeah, Orlando is not the place to be if you don't like the traffic, okay? And then moving on to number 3, the third reason why you should not move to Orlando, Florida, that would have to be because of the wildlife and the bugs. We have roaches, mosquitoes, lizards, snakes, alligators, raccoons, armadillos, possums, deers, bobcats, foxes, the list goes on. If you want to live in Florida, these are the wildlife and the bugs that you have to deal with. And I'm going to start with the roaches. The roaches here, they love warm weather. So Florida, being warm, they're going to be around. Now, this is the thing about the roaches. As long as you keep your house clean and your cars clean and well maintained, you won't have to deal with them a lot, basically at all. You may see one here or there, but as long as you're keeping things clean, taking out your trash, you won't have to deal with the roaches. But they are around. And so if you do slip up, let's say for a week, and you start to seeing 3 to 4 roaches, then I mean, that's just what you have to deal with. They are hard to get rid of. They're really hard to get rid of, but easy to gain. All right, and then moving on to the mosquitoes. Mosquitoes, they will suck the living blood from out of you. All right, literally. And if you live anywhere near lakes, they love lakes. That's where they do their thing at. And so if you live anywhere near lakes, you're gonna have to deal with mosquitoes, especially during the summer months. It gets very humid, like I mentioned before. So these mosquitoes, they are out and they are on the attack. They do not play. I'm telling you, mosquitoes, they'll bite you and they'll tag you up here and there. You may walk outside and then walk back in and have about 4 or 5 mosquito bites on your arm, neck, shoulder. So it's best to get off spray to repel them. And what else can you do? I mean, there's just some things that you could do, but if you live anywhere near a lake, they're going to be around there. All right. So that's another reason why you shouldn't move to Orlando if you hate mosquitoes and don't want to be bitten up. All right. Now moving on to the love bugs. Now love bugs, they're like ladybugs. You know, they're sweet, they're gentle. They like flying on you and just crawling If you think about, I'm thinking about being up north, they resemble like the light bugs, the bugs with the lights on them. They don't harm anybody. However, during their mating months, which is from April to May and August to September, they are all around. And so if you have a car during these months, I'm going to tell you, you might want to get a fender cover because they will mess up your car. All right, they will make it look like you just went through the jungle. All right, it just looks bad when you're driving, and all of a sudden you get out your car and you look at the front of it, and it's just covered with love bugs. You know, love is in the air. So during these months of April and May and August and September, so you want to protect your car, get a wax, get a cleaning, a car wash subscription so that you can wash it frequently, but make sure you get it waxed so you're not scratching off the paint too much. And then also during these months, or you can get your fender cover, all right, to protect the front of your car, because love bugs will damage your car and make it look like it's been through some things. All right, and then last but not least, what I know everybody is thinking about, what about the gators? All right, the gators do not mess with you if you don't mess with them. All right, and I'm gonna tell you this, you have to assume that there is a gator in any body of water. All right, especially if it's as big as a car. If the body of water is as big as a car, assume that there is a gator in it. All right, I know you hear these stories about gators snatching up these dogs and babies or whatnot. It's just because they're not aware. They're not aware. All right, so any body of water, pond, retention pond, a lake, be prepared that there is a gator. But I'm gonna tell you now, there is a 1 in 3.2 million chance that a gator will attack anybody. A 1 in 3.2 million chance that a gator will attack. So like I said, if you don't bother the gator, they won't bother you. Gators are not a real major fact, like a major problem here in Orlando, all right? Or even just in Florida, they're not a major problem. But yeah, so if you bother the gator, they're gonna protect themselves, right? And you just gotta expect that. But yeah, if you don't like the wildlife, the roaches, the bugs, garden snakes, that's another thing. Garden snakes, they will be at your front door. They don't bite, they're not poisonous, but you gotta expect them. But if you don't like wildlife, Florida, Orlando is not the place to be because it's all around. All right, now the fourth reason why you should not move to Orlando, Florida is because of the homeowners insurance. Florida homeowners pay more on average for homeowners insurance than any other state in the country. And it's mandatory that you have homeowners insurance if you have a mortgage here in Florida. The average home premium is about $6,000, which is nearly 4 times the nation's average. So that's throughout Florida. But specifically for Orlando, the average in Orlando is about $2,800, which is still high compared to the nation's average. So this is a major problem here. Now, when you think about it, there's quite a few factors that play into this, and you know, one of them is being a severe threat of weather. So like hurricanes, thunderstorms, hail. You know, hail is not really common, but you know, it may happen. And so flooding, and then you know, there has been years of fraud and frivolous lawsuits that have been filed against these insurance companies. All right, these huge insurance companies that cover nationwide, they are leaving Florida in particular because of these frivolous and fraudulent lawsuits. Now, I don't want to get into it because I'm not trying to get into the political aspect of it, but the facts are that contractors are soliciting these homeowners and telling them that they need new roofs or whatnot, and asking the insurance company to pay for them to get it fixed, when it's maybe not even a major deal or major damage to the roof. So whenever, people find a loophole in the system, of course they're going to exploit it. And that's basically what's happening right now. However, they have passed a law, quite a few laws that help mitigate these types of frivolous lawsuits. There are insurance companies moving in back into Florida. As a matter of fact, they just added 6 more into Florida. And so that's going to help mitigate a lot of the insurance costs and premiums, because as of right now, Citizens, the government-backed insurance company, which is supposed to be the last resort for everyone, has about 1.7 policies open. Basically, that's not what it was meant to withhold. So with insurance premiums for homeowners, this is a major factor here. And if you can't deal with that on top of the mortgage, it's just something that you have to deal with. So with homeowners insurance, this is a major thing here that you have to deal with when moving to Orlando. And it shocks a lot of people because of the higher premiums compared to other states. So if you can't handle that, then for right now, because they are working on it, if you can't handle that for right now, then Orlando is not the place to be. And so now, the 5th reason why you should not move to Orlando, Florida, is because it's a tourist destination. Now, hear me out. Like I mentioned before, I love the tourists. I love meeting new people. I love learning about different cultures and backgrounds. I love the diversity of Orlando, the foods, the places to go. However, if you do not like being in crowded places, if you don't like being around different people, different cultures, different ethnicities, trying different restaurants, being bumper to bumper sometimes, going back to that traffic aspect, then Orlando is not the place for you to be. In 2022, there were 74 million visitors that visited Orlando, Florida. They haven't gotten the stats for 2023, but just think about it. We were just removed from the pandemic, where Florida wasn't closed anyways, but pre-pandemic, that's pre-pandemic numbers, 74 million visitors. Now just think about last year where everything was open, all right? I'm pretty sure those numbers went up, if anything. And then along with Epic Universe coming, and then SeaWorld upgrading their theme park with roller coasters, there's a lot that's going on and being added to Orlando that will make it a much more attractive tourist destination. And so even with the tourists coming, you have to think about it. If you have a store and you have a lot and you have people coming in and you're selling out a lot, what are you going to do? You're going to raise the prices. So that's another aspect that you have to think about when being in a tourist destination, is higher prices on things that you may pay regular price for in another part of Central Florida. When you come to Orlando, in certain parts of Orlando, not every part, you may have a premium put on it because so many people come to that area and there's a premium on it. So like I said, the fifth reason why you should not move to Orlando is if you do not want to be in a tourist destination and deal with the effects of being in a tourist destination. All right, and then number 6, the 6th reason why you should not move to Orlando is because of the hurricanes and the thunderstorms. Here in Orlando, we don't have to deal with a lot of flooding and being hit really hard by hurricanes because we are so inland. And we have time to prepare for the hurricanes before they hit us. All right, and these hurricanes, they slow down by the time they hit the land. So by the time they get to us, it's probably a thunderstorm. All right, but nevertheless, we deal with hurricanes, right? Not saying that we don't deal with floods or trees falling, because we do. All right, and that is something that you have to accept and be prepared for if it does happen. Now hurricane season starts June 1st and ends November 30th. All right, So between that time, you have to expect at any point in time, of course, news is going to let us know, but during that time, you have to expect some type of hurricane or thunderstorm to come through, and you have to be prepared for it. So that means you have to go out and get your gasoline, your generators, candles, lights, tarps, ropes, chainsaws, wireless chargers, whatever it is to prepare for the hurricane. All right, and then, you know, like I mentioned, flood, a lot of rain, you have to be prepared for it. What comes with that is power outages, canceled plans, and more. So these are the things that you have to think about when moving to Orlando, Florida. Some days, some weeks, your plans may get canceled because of the thunderstorm or hurricane. And so I know for me, being a football coach, some of our football games will be rescheduled to the following week. And if the hurricane has done damage or even hasn't passed through all the way, then we may not even have the opportunity to play that game. So it affects a lot of people, and you know, it causes it tends to mess up some plans. But overall, safety is first. So make sure you are prepared when the hurricane do come. But if you don't like hurricanes or thunderstorms, or your plans getting canceled, or the threat of a tree falling on your home, or whatever it is, then Orlando is not the place to be. Now that brings us to the 7th reason why you should not move to Orlando, Florida. But before we go there, I have 3 additional reasons why you should not move to Orlando that didn't make my top 7 list, but they are still very important. And so you want to stick around to hear those honorable mentions. Now, the 7th reason why you should not move to Orlando, Florida is the tolls. Orlando has been named the toll booth capital of the world, and it's for a reason. There are tolls everywhere. All right, so if you're driving throughout Orlando in any part, you're most likely going to run into some tolls. So it's best that you get an e-pass and try to mitigate those costs, because at the end of the day, this is a cost of living that you have to factor into your day-to-day expenses, especially if you're traveling from one part of Orlando and throughout Orlando to the other side. You're going to run across many tolls. Even on I-4, they just added these express lanes. Even on I-4, they added these express lanes that tack on tolls if you want to use them. And if you don't have an e-pass, they automatically charge you how much the toll costs plus $25. So it's best to get an e-pass, especially if you want to use the express lanes and just use the tolls or turnpikes in general, toll roads and turnpikes in general. In a area where they have the most tolls and have to pay just to get from one part of, then Orlando is just not the place for you to be. That's the 7th reason why you should not move to Orlando. And this surprises a lot of people, because when they're looking at their expenses at the end of the year, they notice how much it adds up when you're driving in Orlando. The 8th reason why you should not move to Orlando, Florida is because there aren't any beaches. All right, so if you wanted that quick get to the sand, toes in the sand and into the beach, then Orlando is not the place to be, because the nearest beach to Orlando are about an hour to hour and a half away. All right, you got Daytona, New Smyrna, Cocoa Beach. All right, and then if you go west, you have Clearwater, St. Petersburg, all that coast. All right, so Orlando is not the place to be if you want a beach living lifestyle. So that would be number 8. All right, and then number 9. All right, and then the 9th reason why you should not move to Orlando, Florida is the HOAs. All right, people moving from the Midwest, they are shocked by how many houses or communities run with HOAs. Now, if you want the amenities that these communities provide, that just comes hand in hand with the HOAs. So if you want a community with clubhouse, gym, pool, landscaping, then it just comes with HOAs, and that's just something that you have to deal with. And so if you don't want to deal with extra fees such as the HOAs, then Orlando is not the place to be if you want to live in a decent neighborhood. I'm gonna say it like that. All right. Don't get me wrong, there are some neighborhoods that don't have HOAs that are set up pretty nice. They're on the higher end. And then if you're thinking about moving into a condo, that's even more, all right, where they get up to about $800 a month. All right, now these other communities, they're pretty lower on the lower end for the HOAs, and they're about, let's say $80, $90, maybe even $120, $150 a month. All right, so if you don't want to deal with HOA fees, then Orlando is probably not the place for you to be. All right, and then last but not least, the 10th reason why you should not move to Orlando, Florida is because of the lack of walkability. All right, there are not a lot of neighborhoods that offer that walkability where you can go to walk to a grocery store, to a restaurant, back to your home or whatever it is. Orlando just doesn't offer that many neighborhoods. Not saying that there aren't any neighborhoods here that offer that, but if you want to experience Orlando at its greatest and experience all that Orlando has to offer, you're going to need a vehicle, all right? And then the public transportation here is not that good. The bus system, they are not funding it enough to handle all the people that come to Orlando, and plus the people that live here. It's just not kept up well to handle all these people. All right, like I mentioned, there are 74 million people that visited Orlando in 2022. All right, so if you're looking for a place that you can maneuver and experience all that Orlando has to offer, or all that the place has to offer, the city has to offer, without a vehicle, Orlando is not the place to be for you. So I know I missed a con or two. So in the comments, let me know what cons I missed and some cons you experienced personally when you were living here on a permanent basis, or even if you just came here on a temporary basis. And if you would like to know some of the pros of living here in Orlando, then you will want to click on this video to better understand if this is the place you should call home.